There we are. All right, well, thank you so much for coming. It's kind of funny. We had dinner last night. It was a fantastic dinner. And the question came up, what the hell are you doing in Frankfurt? And I wanted to address that question because I think it's important. One, I like Frankfurt. I'll tell you this story. The first time I was in Frankfurt, my wife is here with one of my children. They can confirm the story. It's all true. The other reason why I'm here is I like beginnings. I didn't go to DEF CON this year. I didn't go to Black Hat. Unfortunately, I went to RSA. And those conferences are becoming too much. They're huge. And being at the beginning of a conference, like I was at BSides Transylvania. I don't know if anybody was here, was in that Romanian conference in Cluj. It was amazing. I love being at the beginning of conferences. Now, I'm not at the very beginning of this conference, but being at the second conference or somewhat the beginning is special. You tend not to forget these things. You tend to say, I remember when I was there when it was 100 people in a small room in a university. These times are amazing, and that's ultimately what I'm looking for. To that end, this is a computer security conference. I've provided a tiny URL for you all to go to. Trust me. It'll get you free labs. Everything that I'm going to do today is going to be available for you to do. In fact, if we look at the labs that I have here, let me go here. I have a, no, bad Microsoft. I'm part of anti-siphon security training and Black Hills Information Security. We have a booth right out here in the hall. All of you should get a copy of Backdoors and Breaches. It's free. We finally got a publisher here in the EU, which is fantastic, because I don't have to smuggle them in to Europe anymore and explain to customs why I have 500 of these. It's awesome at 4 a.m. In Romania. But all of these labs, for these classes that I teach, we teach Pay What You Can classes. Intro to SOC core skills, intro to security. The ones I will be doing today are cyber deception labs. So I'll be running through those, and these are all available. You'll get access to this instance, which is a full Windows 10 instance with Windows subsystem for Linux running on it. And you'll be able to do everything that I do here today with family and friends. It's great to do over the holidays, or with pets. I don't know, whatever you do. So let me go over here. I want to have a little bit of a conversation about cyber deception. For the longest time in computer security, if you ever discussed cyber deception, many times it was in terms of honeypots. We're going to set honeypots. And the conventional wisdom in computer security is don't do honeypots or cyber deception until you have done everything else. And that argument is complete and utter garbage. It is incorrect, and it's detrimental to the industry. And we see this persist again and again and again. Brian Krebs, friend of mine, says deception technologies are nice, but advisable only if your organization is already doing 99% of the rest of the basic security stuff. I disagree with Mr. Krebs. Jeff Moss, another friend of mine, Dark Tangent, founder of DEF CON and Black Hat, said one interesting omission, Moss said, was the apparent lack of use of deception technology. I've never heard one speaker say, and then I checked my canary ore, and then I reviewed the deception tech. Who here uses deception technology? We need to change that. And I hate to disagree with these people, because they're absolutely amazing luminaries in the industry, but they are wrong. Every one of you, when you go back to work, should implement some cyber deception technologies immediately on Wednesday. They don't have to be full honeypots. They don't have to be complicated. They can be relatively easy, and they will work. So let's go through some of them. One of the things when we're looking at detections, this is a graph from a number of years ago, on how organizations detected an attack, all right? Anything that has a little red or like square around it is external. Over 67% of the detects in organizations today are from third parties telling you that you've been compromised. It could be law enforcement. It could be your customers. It could be your own employees that have nothing to do with computer security. but it's 67%, it's actually 66.7% of the detects that we have in the industry are from third parties picking up the phone and telling us that we've been hacked. Not from a magical vendor, not from a single pane of glass, not security orchestration, automation, and response outside of the organization. And we need to have a conversation as to why that is and how we can turn that around and be better at what we are doing. In the United States, we have MITRE. They have developed the SHIELD Engage framework. And this is a full framework that they have of deception technologies, and it's a framework that I helped them write. So many of the things we're going to be talking about will be coming from this framework. So I want to go on a little bit of a tangent. Let's talk about threat intelligence feeds. There are right ways and wrong ways to handle cyber threat intelligence. The wrong way to do cyber threat intelligence is to spend a lot of money for bad IP addresses, bad URLs, bad domains. When we purchase that, a lot of those entries are old. It's talking about attacks that happened on another organization a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. It is not something that is necessarily relevant to what is going against your organization today. Let me further clarify. At Black Hills Information Security, we do over 670 security assessments and pen tests per year. The IP addresses that we are using today are not the same IP addresses that we used 3 days ago. They are not the same domains that we used a month ago. We are constantly staying ahead of the detection wave where people are detecting the techniques, the websites, the URLs, the IP addresses that we use every single day. So almost by nature, much of what you get from cyber threat intelligence is out of date before it even hits your organization as well. So I think deception can be a technology that is cyber threat intelligence against your organization right now. What are the attackers doing post-exploitation? What are they doing for recon? What are they doing for active scanning and attacking? This also applies to nation-state level adversaries. I have done nation-state level hacking for the United States government. I have done it for DoD, I have done it for the intelligence community, and I have done it for special forces. The main rule that we had every single time I did an op was don't get caught. That is the rule. Don't get caught. And there's a number of reasons why we don't want to get caught. Number one, getting caught sucks. Number two, if you're nation state and you're using techniques or you're using tools that are really expensive, brand new malware that bypasses endpoint, brand new communication techniques that bypass firewalls, that costs money in very real terms. It also costs time. So when I'm doing an operation for the United States government, or when I did it in the past, if we had even a slight chance of being detected, 9 times out of 10, the commander in charge of that operation would pull the plug because it wasn't worth getting caught. So what we want to do is change that calculation to where getting caught is a high probability. And as I mentioned, the stuff that I'm going through today is part of anti-siphon security training, but I have an entire class dedicated to this that's 2 full days that is free, or pay what you can. So if you like this and you're like, I would like to spend 2 days going over a lot more different techniques, we have a class that's available for you. So I'm going to start at the very beginning because it's super easy to do. We're going to talk about canary tokens by Thinkist. So if we go to the Canary Tokens website, Canary Tokens is free. I don't know if you remember a security researcher, Sub-T, on Twitter that was coming up with bypass techniques for EDRs a number of years ago. He now works at Thinkist, and Haroon and the team make this available for free. You can generate these Canary tokens where you can create a web bug, a DNS token, a QR code, which is fun, MySQL dump if somebody dumps your database, AWS key. This one's fun because you can put it out in a GitHub repository or someplace inside of your organization, and as soon as an attacker tries to access that S3 bucket, you get a notification. Fake app, log4shell, redirect, sensitive command. This one's actually a registry key, sensitive command, that if anybody tries to run a command on a computer system, it automatically generates a high-level alert. Web image, Excel spreadsheet, Word document, tons of them. One of the ones that is my favorite is this, a cloned website. When we're doing attacks, okay, we will clone a customer's website for the purposes of a spear phishing engagement. All I need is a user ID, password, two-factor authentication, something like that. I clone that website, and then I send an email to the victims at that organization, and then they go to that website, I intercept their user ID, password, two-factor authentication, and now I'm them in their cloud service. This is standard level attacks that happen again and again and again. What this does is awesome. So I can put in a domain. That means this is the domain. If this JavaScript ever fires on this domain, don't do anything. So when it executes, it knows the domain of the website that it's on. I can put in my email address, and then I can put in a little note to myself. There we go. And then I create the canary token. And it creates this JavaScript. This is amazing because it says if the Windows location does not equal Black Hills InfoSec, then it's going to go to canary tokens and it's going to trigger this alert. What this does, and by the way, you can totally obfuscate this, like so. What this does is when a hacker clones your website, it automatically takes this JavaScript with it. Now, when the attacker runs that website, it runs the JavaScript. It sees it's not on a blackhillsinfosec.com domain. And then it automatically triggers an alert, and I get the IP address of that cloned website before they have ever sent a single spear phishing email into my organization. Think about that. Let me say that again. I will get the IP address of the cloned website before they send a single spearfish into my organization. So I can deny list them before they ever launch their attack. Ladies and gentlemen, this is cyber threat intelligence. Not something you purchased that happened a month ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. This is telling you that somebody is cloning your website right now. And all of this is free. All of it's free by Haroon and the team at Thinkist Canary. So I just went through all of that. This is what it looks like at Black Hills Information Security. At least this is what it looked like back in 2019. It doesn't look like this anymore because we import all of this into Elastic. I saw somebody walking around with an Elastic shirt. Shout out. We import this into Elastic now, so it integrates with our full stack of detection. But this is what it looked like with them setting up. Actually, this is a number of different attackers. But at Black Hills Information Security, we are constantly being attacked. So we were able to identify and shun all of these IP addresses before they send any spearfishes into our organization. And if we look at our filters, we can see where these people are sending attacks in, and they're automatically blocked. So this is 1 week at our company in 2019. Like I said, it looks different in Elastic now. The next one is Word docs, and I'm going to do a demonstration of how you can couple this with a share because I think it's hilarious. But you can create Word documents that beacon back. The first time I ever did this, I was working with the United States Law Enforcement Agency. They were working a case where a 12-year-old girl had been abducted. We knew who had the 12-year-old little girl because he changed his Skype picture to be a picture of the little girl crying. So working with this law enforcement agency, they came to me and they said, is there any way we can work to find where this individual is? If you remember in the old days with Skype, if you went to Skype with a warrant, they would basically tell you, no, we're not going to give you IP address and location information for any of our customers ever. So what we did is another family member that was communicating with him via Skype was working with us. We created a Word document. We sent the Word document to the suspect, and the name of the Word document was something like news clippings, because his friend said, hey, there's a warrant out for your arrest, here's some news clippings. He opened up the Word document, and we got the IP address, the date timestamp, and the source port. If you have IP address, date timestamp, source port, you can go to any ISP in the world, and you can get with a warrant, if they support warrants, and they can tell you exactly where that IP address is at that time. And we were able to get the girl back. So I used it in that case. That was a long, long, long time ago. But you can also use this in your own organization, where if you believe a system to be compromised, you can put a Word document with a beacon in it with a name like credit card information, financial routing information. And the attacker will grab that document, pull it, open it up, and then you'll get a call back from that attacker. Now, how accurate is this? Generally speaking, location based on IP address is very inaccurate. It just is. Many IP addresses here in Frankfurt, if you geolocate, it puts you in the city center of Frankfurt. It's just, it's there. We have to understand why. Because we can get a lot more accurate if we understand how routing works and we understand how networking works. So I sent this email to my brother a number of years ago who works with us at Black Hills Information Security, and he opened up the document. And this is just using the straight Canary token website. I have the IP address, the user agent string. The token reminder says he opened it. So far, that's pretty good. This is where everything went wrong. On this particular one, it put his location here, in the middle of Louisville, Kentucky. We were all the way over there, kind of where the U is. That's not hyper accurate under any stretch of the imagination. It just isn't. Now, if I had a warrant, I could get more accurate, but I didn't. Instead, what you can do is you can trace route. Trace route to this IP address will show you all of the routing hops between where you're at and the end destination. And here, we have the end destination of the IP address that opened the document. I'm not interested in that. That IP address is a dynamically assigned IP address via DHCP. ISPs do not track geolocations of dynamically assigned IP addresses because that would be insane. Not interested in that IP address. I'm interested in this one. This IP address is the routing hop right before the IP address of the hotel that we were staying at. ISPs tend to be far more accurate in geolocating their routers and where their network infrastructure actually is. And with that particular router, it got us within half a block of where we were. So you can see we're here. There is a hotel, where is it? Hyatt Regency Louisville is where we were staying. That's a lot more accurate. And once again, if you're working with law enforcement, you can get even more accurate as well. But if you use the one with canary tokens, it doesn't work with Linux word processing. It doesn't work with Mac word processing. We can use Word web bugs for that. And you can create HTML. You don't put this inside of the Word document. You would use Vim, and you would save it as a doc file format. And here you can have the HTML, the head, cascading style sheet, and then a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image source tag. This one will work with all of these. It'll work with Obby Word, LibreOffice, Apple TextEdit, Microsoft Word. No problem. Easy to use. The next one I want to show you is, I'm actually going to do a quick demonstration. You can actually couple some of these things with a honey share, and I'm going to show you that. One of the things you can do in your organization is you can create a share in your organization, and let me explain why. It's really incredibly important for you to understand what are the top techniques an attacker is going to go through post-exploitation. If you understand the pathways that an attacker is going to take, there's really only about 5 post-exploitation techniques, an attacker is going to go through to try to elevate their privileges inside of Active Directory. They're going to do these 5 things. One of them is a password spray. One of them is using tools like Bloodhound to identify shares and files in the organization. They're going to do these things. They just are. And if we know that they're going to do those things, we can put traps in those specific areas where we will catch them. So with this one, we're going to create a share. I'm going to do ifconfig, like this. Once again, all of this is going to be available for free to you all, the entire lab environment, everything is ready to go. I've got my IP address, that's great. I'm going to become root. The password is ADHD, of course, which I misspelt apparently. There we go. There we go. All right, now I'm going to CD into Unpacket. Now, Unpacket is generally used by pen testing firms to create shares that intercepts password hashes. So I'm going to go into the Unpacket directory and we're going to create an SMB share with the name secret. Now, the way an attacker finds this is they have automated tools that automatically discover all of the shares that are available to them. A number of easy ways, just get on an environment and type netview by itself, and it'll show you all of the shares on the network on a Windows system. So very common for an attacker to do that. All right, so now I have my share is going to start up. I need to grab my IP address here, 172.28.97.250. I'm going to grab that IP address. Come on. There we go, Mr. Computer. Well done. Copy that. All right, so now we have our share running. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through the steps of an attacker trying to access that share. We have this netuse star. That means it's going to mount the next available drive letter starting with Z, working backwards. And it's going to be against the target IP address, and it's going to try to access the secret share. All right? So we're going to go ahead and put that in. That is not what I wanted. My copy and pasting skills have failed. Here we go. So let me copy and paste this again. So we just very simply stood up a share. That's all we did, right? And now I'm going to put in my IP address here. There we go. And I'm going to access it. Let's see if this works. Uh-oh. It looks like it failed. Something about demo gods not being kind. Let's read this error, though. Let's figure out and troubleshoot what happened here. So I tried to access the share, and Microsoft came back and told me, system error 1272 has occurred. You can't access this shared folder because your organization's security policies block unauthenticated guest access. Isn't that awesome that we have security policies that keep us safe? You guys feel warm? I do. It's great. It's great. What else do you have, Microsoft? These policies help protect you and your PC from unsafe or malicious devices on the network. I feel safer tonight knowing that Microsoft has my best interests at heart. But maybe if we go back to where I have my honeypot running, it might be possible, just possible, that Microsoft dumped my password hashes anyway. So I love that error because Microsoft is like, that's dangerous. Someone could get your password hashes, and then it literally does that thing right here. But if I'm setting this up as a honeypot, there's some great information here. I have the source IP address. I have the host name. I have the name of the user. And as an added bonus, I also have their password hash. But this is enough information for you if somebody post-exploitation is trying to enumerate shares in your environment, you're going to be able to identify the system immediately. And once again, and I cannot stress this enough, any attacker post-exploitation is going to try to enumerate shares in your environment. You name a share secret or help desk, IT admin, any of these, those are the first shares an attacker is going to go to. But that's not all. We can actually do some more things from the other side. Does anybody want to throw a guess, like what are some other things that attackers do post-exploitation? Like what would you do? Anybody here do red teaming? Yeah, all right. What are some of the techniques you do? Dump creds, right? And many times we'll do that through a password spray, right? Where we try one password against hundreds, if not thousands of users. Why would I choose only one password? To avoid account lockout, right? So that brings me to another demonstration. So once again, with this one, did this look hard to you? The honey share that I just set up. Did that look technically difficult at all? You set this, you forget this, when it triggers, then you immediately lock down that IP address that is trying to access shares. Very low effort, very high return on investment in your organization. The next one is even easier. The next one that I want to show is Honey User. I'm going to use the built-in Windows Event Viewer, and the reason why I use Windows Event Viewer is Windows Event Viewer is like the biggest piece of crap ever created for event log analysis. It's bad is what I'm trying to say. And if you can make this work with Windows Event Viewer, you can make it work with Splunk. You can make it work with Elastic. You can make it work with ArcSight if you want to spend a lot of money. But you can make this work with your super expensive tool, all right? The concept is the same. So we're going to create a user. His name is Frank. Why Frank? I had to come up with a name. I just did. So I'm going to cd into the tools directory, like so. Oh, wow, so nice. It did it twice. There we go. So I'm in the tools directory, and I'm going to run this script that generates 200 users, just so it looks like a semi-legit environment for the password spray. Takes a few seconds for it to run. But the idea is, post-exploitation, I get on John's computer. And I run a password spray against all of your accounts in the environment. I don't choose the accounts, and this is important. I don't go through and say, your account in particular looks interesting. You're an administrator, you're an administrator. They run tools that indiscriminately try to authenticate to every single account in an environment. They do this by dumping net user /domain to dump all of the users off of the domain. Then they automatically spray every single one of those users. And the vast majority of organizations do not have the ability to successfully detect these types of attacks, which is ridiculous. Any SIM worth their salt should be able to detect this, but unfortunately, it's a little bit rare. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom rule in Event Viewer that if anybody tries to access the Frank account, it's automatically going to create, it's going to show us a rule, it's going to show us the event log in Event Viewer. So like I said, if I can do this in 5 minutes in Event Viewer, you absolutely should be able to do this in your super expensive SIM. It's not hard. It's basically setting a rule. If anybody ever tries to log into this specific account, lock it or deal with it immediately. Now, you have to log in. You have to log into the account. And this gets into a bit of trivia. I'm going to call it Frank. What is epoch time for Windows computer systems event logs? Oh, sorry, user accounts. Anyone know? I'm getting January. Speak up. You're really close. What is it? January 1st, 1970 is a great epoch guess. It is correct for Unix. It is correct for a number of things in the file system. It is correct in memory, but it is not correct in this instance. Fantastic. Because of the Gregorian calendar cycle. That is the furthest back that you can go for the Gregorian calendar. instead of the Julian calendar. So very good. A round of applause. That, I'd say like one group out of 10 get that. Well done. So you have to log in, because if you don't, it says the last time that Frank logged in is January 1st, 1601, and we will not attack that account. All right, so we have all of our accounts created. I'm going to clear my screen. We're going to fire up some PowerShell, and we're going to use a tool that we created at Black Hills Information Security. This is by Daft Hacked, or Bull Bullock. And I'm going to set the execution policy unrestricted. I don't think that came through. Here we go. All right. Then what we're going to do is import the modules for this tool. And this is a common tool. We use this all the time at Black Hills Information Security. We see it being used by malicious attackers, or variations of it, called domain password spray in the wild. And we're going to fire it up with the password of winter 2020. Now, this is going to try to authenticate to every single one of the accounts on this system with the password of winter 2020. Now, you're going to see it get into like 5 or 6 accounts here, but it's not going to get into Frank's account. And I really want to stress that it doesn't have to successfully log into Frank's account. It just has to attempt to log in to Frank's account. And because it attempted to log in to Frank's account, if we go back to Windows Event Viewer, you will see, if I refresh, I think 2 or 3 new event logs where somebody failed to log in to the Frank account. Once again, does this seem hard? No, this isn't difficult at all. This is super easy to do. It doesn't cost you anything. I will warn you, there are vendors that'll charge you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this for you. You don't need to spend that money. Like, set up a Honey Share, set up a Honey user. The class, if you look at the labs, there's like 10, 15 more labs that we have. Tons and tons of things for you to do to absolutely mess with an attacker's life. And it doesn't cost anything at all. If you want to create an administrator account, some people try to get a little bit spunky. They try to create administrator level accounts. And by the way, if you're going to do this with a real administrator account, you have to be somewhat careful. First things first, don't be subtle on the name. I just called mine Admin ADM Administrator, just right on the nose. Trust me, no hacker in the history of hacking ever has looked at an account like that and been like, that's pretty suspicious. No, they're going straight for that account. The next thing you need to do is you need to lock and disable the account without locking and disabling the account. Let me explain how. Give it a ridiculously long password. I think that goes without saying. The next thing you do is you set the logon hours to nothing. So the account is enabled, it is active, but under no circumstances, any hours of the day, does it allow you to log in to this account. I learned this trick back in 2001. I had a friend that was a systems administrator, and I decided to mess with him because we pranked each other all the time. It was IT back then. And he would log in, and he was very frustrated because he would work, and then his computer would log him out, and he couldn't figure out why. What I did was I set his login hours to be a smiley face. Yeah, things were different back then. All right. Then, whenever somebody tries to authenticate to that account, they're going to fail, but it's going to generate an alert. You have to set that up in your SIM. Curb roasting. Once again, post-exploitation, we go for curb roastable accounts. It's one of the 5, right? You're going to do curb roastable accounts. Right there, you're going to try to jump in. With curb roasting, you can do the same thing. Create a service account that is curb roastable with a really long password. And this is from a tool that we talk about in the class that does canary tokens with curb roastable accounts. And I love this whenever I see this in reports from our customers, where we got an alert from your tester triggering this, a high priority alert. Someone may be attempting to exploit Active Directory. For more information on what curb roasting is, go here. And then we put this in our report. And I love putting this in BHIS reports. Multiple hosts on the domain were installed as traps. Activities conducted by BHIS revealed that these traps were vulnerable to multiple insecurities, and they made tempting targets. Any interaction with these hosts triggered alerts to the customer and reported to BHIS during the test. While there should not be relied on as the sole source of protection, they add a great layer of added defense. And my testers bitch about it constantly. They always like, well, we had another stupid customer where they went through John's class and they set up all of these honeypots all over the place and wasted all of my time. And I'm like, cry, tester, cry. Collect your tears, send it to me. It makes the best wine. So, all right. We have other tools in the class. This one's Honey Badger. This is where we use Mono to compile this code, and we create a straight executable. It's cool. Once you get into an executable, you can convert it into a ton of different things. You can convert it into Visual Basic. You can convert it just about anything. But this basically does a wireless site survey of the attacker's computer. So if they're trying to obfuscate their IP address, it'll geolocate them with their wireless with NetSH WLAN, show networks mode equals BSSID. You can submit that to Google, and Google will tell you, here's where that system is based on the access points nearby. You compile it. And then the results are like hyper accurate. This one nailed it within 77 meters of where it was. So it's really cool. And you can get it there. But I have a couple of additional things I wanted to share. Backdoors and breaches. This is so awesome because I used to have to smuggle things into the EU. I would show up with 2 huge roller bags filled with backdoors and breaches cards, and I was joking, going through customs. We landed in Cluj-Napoca last time I was here at like 4 a.m., and we had to sit with customs for like an hour explaining why I had 500 decks of these. They were like, first they're like, are these cigarettes? No. Are you sure? And I'm like, well, anything could be a cigarette if you smoke it. Wrong thing to say at 4 a.m. Don't do that, all right? But no, they were super cool, all joking aside. But we have the cards out there. It is a full incident response tabletop game. I'm going to be here for a while. If you want me to show you how it's played, you want this. It's one of the greatest ways to learn about attacks. You draw a card for initial attack and compromise, 1 for pivot and escalate, 1 for command and control, 1 for persistence. And there's an almost infinite number of hacks, and then you use the blue cards to do this. And as I mentioned, this environment that I shared with you all, right here, if I go to this environment, this Windows 10 environment, it's slow, but it's free. And it's completely available to you. It has all of the labs that I have listed here are all available inside of the VM. You can run any one of them. And you can learn more about cyber deception, and you could just go here to get signed up for all of those free labs. But I'm going to leave you with a story, okay? Got a few minutes. I'm going to talk about the first time I ever came to Frankfurt. So a long time ago, in a galaxy far away, I was in like 6 blocks from here. I was invited to come to the city and do some security work in the realm of cyber deception. And the contract was a very good contract. It was over Thanksgiving, which is a U.S. holiday, and I didn't want to go, so I submitted a quote that was high, and they came back with a purchase order, and it wasn't in U.S. dollars, it was in euros. And at the time, the euros were 150% of the value of a U.S. dollar, so it was a very lucrative contract. So I take this contract down to my wife, and I'm like, honey, I've got to go to Europe. I'm going to Frankfurt over Thanksgiving. She was justifiably mad. She's like, that's our holiday. You can't do that. What about your family? What about, there are people, we got to eat. And okay, that's pretty much all we do in the United States on holiday. We just eat. And I show her the contract, and she leaves the kitchen. And I'm like, honey, is everything okay? She goes, I'm packing. So she booked the hotel. The customer told us to stay at this hotel. It was a really nice Hilton, and it was really expensive. And they were like, we're going to cover the cost. But she wanted to come, and the kids were going to come. We have 3 children. And she goes, that's really expensive. I'm going to find a cheaper hotel. So she finds this hotel. We fly out here. Airplane's completely empty. We land, we get in the train, and we take the train to the train station downtown from the airport. And she's like, I got us a hotel really close to the train station. So the kids and I, we can get out and explore Germany. I love telling this joke in the US because no one gets that. They're like, what's a train? Why didn't you guys rent a truck or something? Like, why do you take a train? I don't understand. Do they not have cars in Europe? So we get off the train, we're walking down the street, and like we're following Google Maps, and it's like, turn left. And of course, the kids and my wife and I are just like, this is sketchy. We look down the street, and it's all like red and like pink lights as far as the street can take, and we're like, this is not it. So we kept going, and Google's like, turn around. Shit. Go back. Yep. So then we walked down the street. It wasn't that far down the street. And it was one of them high-class hotels that you have here in Frankfurt. It was one of those ones, it wasn't a hotel, it was an hotel because the H was burnt out. And it was one of those amazing places where you had to push a button to unlock the gate to get into the hotel. You know, you had to push it. It's like, and then someone in German, shouts out, what do you want? Because it's like midnight. And we're like, oh God, please let us in. The gate opens up, we go upstairs. And this amazing lady is there. And Erica picked this hotel because they spoke English, catered to Americans. I'm like, yeah, right. We know what you think of Americans. We showed up and she said, oh my God, you have children. Like, yes. We're gonna need to put new carpet in your room. So she shouts something in German, and I don't know if you all know this, but German is a terrifying language to people in America. It's a very blunt, harsh language. It's like you go and you see like this romance movie on the airplane. You're like, God, they're yelling at each other the whole time. So she yells at this guy. He's like, ah! And he's like, oh, and he shows up and he's got this roll of carpet and he like walks up these stairs. We're like, what the hell is happening? The lady made us a really nice little dinner with some cookies. And she goes, we don't get many families here very often. I'm like, clearly. Finally, our rooms are done. We have 2 rooms adjoining each other. So there's a door open between the 2 rooms. My kids are in one room. My wife and I are in another room. We're kind of freaking out, people. I'm telling you, there's bars on the windows. It's sketch. It's a sketch hotel. And we get snuggled in bed, get the kids snuggled in bed, going to sleep. The door flies open, and the dude that put the carpet in, by the way, the carpet is like ragged cut carpet. It's horrible. He comes up to me and he goes, don't turn on the television. And he runs up to the TVs and unplugs the televisions in both rooms, which naturally means for my kids, they spend the entire 2 weeks like trying to push chairs up to wonder what's on these TVs, And but it was awesome. We couldn't find another place. And it turns out, like the lady made breakfast for my family every single morning. They were very, very nice. They were super polite. My kids love Frankfurt. They're all older now. My youngest is with me. And it's funny when my kids talk about it, they're like, do you remember Frankfurt, Dad? I'm like, yes, I do. I do. I do remember Frankfurt. Why did they have machines that sold balloons on the street corner? Distinctly remember balloons on every... Was that Frankfurt? Yeah, that might have been Amsterdam. I don't know. But we fell in love with Frankfurt in the worst part of Frankfurt. The people that ran the hotel were incredibly nice. Like I said, they took care of my family. We explored the town. So when I got an opportunity to come back, I absolutely took that opportunity. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for having me. We have back doors and breaches out here. By the way, the SAP people, I got to talk with them last night. Their talk is fire. I am sure all of the talks are amazing. But they're going to be talking about some cyber deception. They're going to be talking about some ERP hacks. They're going to be talking about detection. It's going to be amazing. You guys are going to have a great conference. And with that, thank you so much, everybody.